dragon shuddered, and the fire witch laughed again. Then she looked at me, and her eyes glittered. "I want you first, though. Now!" She pointed at me, and I raised the sword of the Sleeping King a little higher, holding onto the hilt with both hands and hoping it could handle fire witches as well as it handled wizards. Something hit the sword, and pain ran through my whole body. Felt a little like the shock I'd gotten when Shiar and I had tried to pick up the sword at the same time, except it went on and on. The sword of the Sleeping King began to get hot. I felt as if boiling lead were running down the sword and into my arms. Think I screamed. I know the fire witch did, because I heard her. The sword of the Sleeping King glowed a dull red in my hands. It wasn't behaving at all the way it had when it stopped at Terrell's spell, and I got the distinct impression that this wasn't very good for it. It wasn't very good for me either. The sensation of boiling lead was oozing farther up my arms. I knew that if I didn't do something, I was going to drop the sword. I shouted and pushed. At least, pushing is the only way I can describe what I did. I wasn't really thinking too clearly by then. I just wanted the lead to go back into the sword and quit hurting. I heard a wail from the fire witch that kind of died out, and the pain stopped very suddenly. I noticed that the sword wasn't glowing anymore, and then I fell over. It wasn't that I felt particularly tired or weak. I just couldn't stand up anymore. The last thing I remember thinking was that I had to hang on to the sword no matter what. I woke up because something small and warm and rough was rubbing my chin. I opened my eyes. Night Witch was sitting on the ground in front of me, licking my face. I was lying face down on the moss. I could feel the sword of the Sleeping King underneath me. It was very uncomfortable. But I didn't feel like moving. I closed my eyes again. Night Witch hissed and dug her claws into my shoulder. Kittens have surprisingly sharp claws, and I opened my eyes again very quickly. The dragon was staring at me from beside Night Witch. At least its head was beside Night Witch. The rest of it wouldn't fit. It blinked at me. "Are you dead?" it asked. "No," I said. I thought about saying something else, but I didn't have the energy. "Oh." The dragon sounded almost disappointed for a minute. Then it brightened. "I think that fire witch is." "That's nice." I had the feeling I should remember something, but I didn't want to think hard enough to figure out what. Night Witch hissed and dug her claws into me again. "Stop that," I said, and I rolled onto my back. "What?" said the dragon. "Night Witch," I said. Rolling over had taken all the energy I had, and I didn't want to talk anymore. I didn't even want to think anymore. I wanted the dragon to just leave me alone, but I couldn't say so without being rude. So I closed my eyes and started drifting off to sleep instead. Then Night Witch jumped onto my chest and dug her claws in hard. I yelled and sat up. Night Witch jumped down to the ground and ran off. I tried to see where she'd gone and saw Morwen's bundle instead. Suddenly I realized that I was very hungry. I started to reach for the bundle, then remembered that I was still holding the sword. I also remembered the boiling lead, and I was almost afraid to look at my hands. I was sure that this time I'd burned both of them worse than when I'd picked up the wizard's staff. I looked down. There wasn't anything wrong with me, at least not that I could see. I let go of the sword with one hand. It didn't hurt. I heaved a sigh of relief and put the sword back in its sheath. Then got out some of Morwen's gingerbread and started eating. It's a good thing the food was right on top of the bundle because I didn't have the strength to hunt for it. The dragon watched me for a few minutes with a puzzled expression. "You're a very good magician," it said finally. "Where did you learn that spell?" "Spell?" I was having a little trouble remembering the details of the fight, I wasn't sure whether it was because it had hurt so badly or because I was too busy eating. The one you shot at right before the witch went up in smoke, the dragon said. You said, power of water, wind, and earth, turn the spell back to its birth. Oh, that, I said, feeling a little silly. It's just part of a rhyme Mother taught me when I was little. I don't know why I said it. Your mother taught you? But that's a dragon spell. Your mother couldn't teach you dragon spells. You don't know my mother, I said. I had eaten most of the gingerbread and I was feeling much better. She taught me 2 more lines to the rhyme. I offered. They go, raise the fire to free the Lord by the power of wood and sword. The dragon looked at me suspiciously. Where did your mother learn dragon spells? She didn't tell me, I said. I finished the gingerbread and looked around. Where does Shiara... My voice died in mid-sentence as I remembered exactly where Shiara had been when I saw her last. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I took a deep breath and turned my head. Sometimes when witches or wizards die, all of their spells die with them. If the witch or wizard is skillful, sometimes the spells last. The fire witch had been skillful. Shiara was still a statue.